When Republican Rutherford B. Hayes and his wife Lucy went to bed on the night of Tuesday, November 7, 1876, Hayes was resigned to the fact that he had lost the 19th presidential election. By midnight, the Democratic candidate, Samuel J. Tilden, was leading in the electoral vote with 184 out of the 185 votes required to secure the presidency, and the Democrats were eager to pack their bags, evict the Republicans, and occupy the White House for the first time in 15 years. Hayes stayed up to wait on voting returns from swing state New York, because he and advisors thought New York would be a crucial state in deciding the election. When a dispatch sent word that Samuel Tilden had a 50,000 vote lead in New York City, Hayes wrote,
"From that point, I never supposed that there was a chance for Republican success."
Rutherford Hayes wrote in his diary that night,
"We soon fell into a refreshing sleep, and the affair seemed over."
However, while Hayes slept, former Republican Congressman Daniel Sickles stopped at the Republican headquarters to check on the voting return numbers. He quickly realized that if Hayes secured the 7 electoral votes from South Carolina, 8 electoral votes from Louisiana, and 4 electoral votes from Florida, then Hayes' count would increase from 165 electoral votes to tie Tilden at 184. Seeing Zachariah Chandler, the Republican Party chairman, in a drunken stupor in his office, Sickles decided to send telegrams in Chandler's name to several Republican leaders in South Carolina, Louisiana, and Florida to alert them of the importance of those states' electoral votes. He received reply from South Carolina Governor Daniel Chamberlain at 3 a.m.
"All right. Stop. South Carolina is for Hayes. Stop."
As the sun rose the following morning, the president-elect remained undetermined. Copies of the National Republican circulated in Washington, D.C. with the headline,
"Suspense. Possibly Tilden. Hopefully Hayes. Reports very conflicting. Some probably falsified."
The hesitation in declaring a president-elect was due to inconsistent popular vote counts in South Carolina, Louisiana, and Florida. Both parties were certain that they had won the states, and each submitted separate vote tallies to Congress. In Florida, for example, out of 47,000 votes, Republicans reported a 922 vote margin with Hayes ahead. But Democrats were just as confident that Tilden was the winner and claimed there was a 94 vote margin in favor of Tilden. Inconsistent media reports announced either Hayes or Tilden as the president-elect in the week following Election Day. The Republican newspaper, National Republican, proclaimed on November 9th that Hayes had won with the full-page headline,
"Glorious news!"
In Louisiana, citizens were informed that Democrats won the election. The Louisiana Democrat printed on November 15th,
"The Republican Party is dead!"
In the 1870s, voting ballots were actually party tickets, printed by political parties and containing a list of all candidates for that party. They might have been printed in a particular color to represent the party and to aid illiterate voters. The reality of Election Day is that both parties exploited the design of party tickets. Democrats used the strategy of printing Democratic ballots with a Republican symbol to get illiterate Republican votes, and at the same time, Republicans were smearing ink on ballots in pro-Tilden counties to discredit the tickets. Voting officials accused each other of stuffing ballot boxes with false votes, as multiple tickets could easily be folded up and submitted by one person. In some counties, the number of votes even surpassed the population. To attempt to reach a verdict, the incumbent President Ulysses S. Grant's administration set up returning boards in South Carolina, Louisiana, and Florida to recount the disputed votes. Essentially, Republican officials were sent to the southern states to sort out the inconsistencies. In Rutherford B. Hayes' eyes, the main issue was the legitimacy of recounting controversial votes. He wrote to John Sherman, who was a Republican statesman dispatched to Louisiana,
"We are not to allow our friends to defeat one outrage and fraud by another. There must be nothing crooked on our part."
He believed that the fraudulent voting was causing the democracy set up by the Founding Fathers to fail. He wrote in his diary on December 7th,
"A contest ruinous to the country, dangerous, perhaps fatal to free government, may grow out of the fraud. I would gladly give up all claim to the presidency if this would avert the evil without bringing on us a greater calamity."
On March 2, 1877, Congress finally awarded all disputed electoral votes from South Carolina, Louisiana, and Florida to Rutherford B. Hayes, so that he triumphed with 185 electoral votes over Tilden's 184. Hayes expressed in his inaugural speech on March 5th that
the President of the United States of necessity owes his election to office to the suffrage and zealous labors of a political party,
because it was due to the interventions of his party's supporters that he was eventually elected. According to the New York Times, Hayes was informed of his victory while on board a train to New York.
The news created quite a jubilee among the governor's friends, who congratulated him on his being able to enter the capital of the nation as the actual president-elect, with no further doubt resting upon his title.